And welcome back to not so sunny Snetterton. There's been a bit of a change in the weather, but so far, well, it's not raining at the moment. It has, but I think we're all right. We have round 10 of the GT Cup Championship for you. The pit stop race is coming up in about 10 minutes' time. First of all, though, here are your race 1 highlights with Mark Werrell.
In the sprint race earlier on today, Sam Neary would lead the pack up towards Ritchie's corner, and from 4th on the grid, the Brabham BT62 of Paul Bailey would end up in 2nd. Contact in the early stages, Andy Roby would head into retirement. Alex Stevenson would get going again, but would fall to the tail end of the field. Having had an overnight engine rebuild, early problems for Steve Burgess, mechanical issues would also put him out of the race. John Dillon was under pressure from Lucky Kira, small mistake at Williams, through would go Lucky to take up an overall podium spot and then start to challenge Paul Bailey for 2nd place, diving up the inside of the Brabham as they went in towards Murray's. Lucky Kira, though, in a straight line, was caught again by Paul Bailey, and the pair would run side by side up towards Palmer, followed by John Dillon, but Dillon would make a mistake and in the background head off onto the grass. The Group GTA leader Simon Orange was having a great battle with Mo Ritson, the pair of them side by side and nose to tail, lap after lap. And there was also a fantastic squabble going on for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in Group GTH, headed by the number 90 McLaren of Mike Price. John Seal went off and into the barriers following contact with the Brabham of Paul Bailey whilst fighting for the lead of Group GTO, putting both cars out on the spot. Then Tom Rawlings was trying to get himself back ahead of Simon Orange. He got through, but was too late on the brakes at Ritchie's, would spin the car and lose the lead of Group GTH. But for Sam Neary, it was another untroubled race. The Abbott Mercedes that he shares with his father in the pit stop races would come through to make it 3 out of 3 this weekend in GT Cup.
Thanks for that, Mark. Well, the cars are now starting to leave the garages and head out onto the track. Before we get to the race, though, there is a team that's joining GT Cup for the first season this year, and that is Paddock Motorsport. And yesterday, they had their first class win. I joined the 2 young amateur drivers who are behind the wheel of their McLaren. I'm joined now by Mo Ritson and Tom Rawlings. So I'm just laughing there because Mark Werrell was waving at me as he walked past. Naughty Mark. Guys, Tom, first of all, you have just finished racing in the sprint. But I have to say, congratulations yesterday because you had your first win, your first class win. And it's a big class, the GTH, heavily contested, so well done.
Yeah, it was a really good win yesterday. I started the race, the endurance race yesterday, and unfortunately I went for the outside and got caught up with some GT3 Lambos at the hairpin in the 2nd turn, and so I had to pull it back from there. And once I pulled it back, I think we come in with for the pit stop was a 2.5 second lead in our class, and then Mo jumped in just to finish off, which he done really well. So
yeah, and just talk us through yesterday's race, Mo, as well.
It was great. Tom did a great job in the first stint, despite the hiccup at the start. He rebounded from it amazingly, got us back from, I think it was 7th back up to 1st, which was, was exactly what we needed, and built a nice gap, like you said. The pit stop, we practiced it over and over, and it went to plan. It all went nice and smoothly. Then, for me, it was just hold off the pros, which was, a new experience. Ollie Webb in my mirrors, it was, just kind of keeping my head focused and not letting the pressure get to me. And we came out on top. Albeit quite close at the end, but top step of the podium, which is great for the team's first podium and everything.
Yeah, it's fantastic because we should mention, you mentioned pro drivers, but both of you are actually AM drivers. And so what's sort of your history with motor racing, because you're young lads?
Yeah, I started karting when I was about 8 or 9. From karting we did Junior 1000 rallying, finished 3rd in the British Junior Rally Championship. Then we've done single seater racing, and then we've done a year in minis, No, 2 years in Mini, sorry. And then now we're here doing GT racing, so yeah.
And what about you, Mo?
Not much history in it. I never really did any karting. I did a bit of indoor stuff. And then I did junior saloon cars in a little Citroen Saxo for a year. And then took a fairly big step to the Ginetta G50 in Brookcar. So that was a year of that. And last year we weren't able to race just for certain reasons with COVID and everything like that. And here we are. You know, it's great to be with, you know, a well-established team with Martin and Kelvin as team managers. They're doing an amazing job, especially in their first year running the McLaren. And with Tom and everything, you know, everything's fallen into place, so it's great.
Wow, yeah, that is quite a big jump for you, isn't it, to just suddenly be doing GT Cup? Are you enjoying it so far?
Yeah, it's brilliant. The team have ran the team really well so far, and I can't fault anything they do any weekend, so yeah, it's really good.
And what about the car itself? Let's talk about it, because you're standing in front. The number 26 here. Tell us about your McLaren.
It's great. Absolutely love it. It's one of the most fun cars I've ever driven. You know, hats off to the guys, you know, behind it all, developing it all, and you know, they've got a great race car that's, you know, this weekend it's proven it's extremely competitive, which is what you want at the end of the day. You know, it's got its own, you know, personality traits that take a bit of getting used to, but that's part of learning, especially when we're this young. It's part of the big path to, you know, making a career in this is understanding these cars.
So great to hear from the new team and its two drivers. Well, we've got round 10 of the championship coming up in a few moments' time. We're still a long way to go in the championship, but let's just have a look at who are the group leaders at this stage in the GT Cup. Group GTH for the GT4 cars is being led by the new team also for this year, Orange Racing, powered by JMH. Simon Orange and Josh Jackson sharing that car throughout the season. The sister car to it also leads Group GTA, and that's the other car that Simon Orange and Josh Jackson also share. They are on 198 points, leading Group GTA, and that keeps them right the way towards the top of the overall championship standings on 198. Group GTO, well, John Seal and Jamie Stanley are now actually on equal points with the pairing of what will be Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley. Both of those are now on 135 following the maths that were done after the race earlier on. Group GT3 is being led by the Team ABBA Racing car, and you can see it is on 218 points, only 2 points adrift of the Group GTC leading car that also leads the overall championship across all of the groups. Top Cats Racing, brand new car for them, but Jensen Lunn and Warren Gilbert have got to grips with it beautifully well. And Group GTB is being led by the Team Hard Race pairing of Richard Marsh and Sam Randon. So it's all very close still. There's a long way to go because remember, subject to the number of starters in each group, 3 or more, 25 points for the race win, 18 points for second, 15 points for third. If there's just 2 starters in the group, it's 18 points for the win. And if there's just 1 starter, which I think there is in Group GTO in this race, provided we get the Radical at the back of the grid because of its problems earlier on, because this grid is formed from the fastest lap time set in the sprint race earlier on. Such has been the rate of attrition in Group GTO this weekend, with Richard Chamberlain having problems, John Seal and Paul Bailey coming together, as we saw in the highlights of the sprint race earlier on. Both of those cars are unable to take this start, so Group GTO, just the 1 car starting, 15 points it would be for a win for that Radical if he could see the checkered flag, because that has been plagued with a couple of issues this weekend, with suspension issues in the sprint race earlier on and engine issues in the race yesterday. So the cars are making their way out onto the circuit. Remember, this is the pit stop race, so we will hand down to Michelle in a short while, but just to give you the format for the pit stop race, then we will see the groups of cars pit at differing times. So because it is the Sunday pit stop race, then Group 1, which is either the Group GTO cars, the Group GT3 cars and the Group GTC cars, will dive into the pit lane between the 29th and the 35th minutes of the race, whereas the Group 2 cars, which are the cars in Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA, which stopped later yesterday, they will stop between the 24th and the 29th minute of the race today. So they actually are the first batch to stop. So they swap it round each day. So whichever group pits first one day, the other group pit first the second day. And all of that is because such is the popularity of the GT Cup Championship, with a very full pit lane. If everybody were to descend on the pit lane in one foul swoop, it would be very dangerous. Too many cars in there, too many mechanics and people working on it, and driver changes taking place. So sensible decisions by Butte Motorsport, the organisers of the GT Cup, to segregate the separate groups so that there are 2 separate pit windows for each and no overlapping in between the pair of them. So the cars working their way round onto the grid. We will give you the grid when they head off on their formation lap. We've given you the way that the standings work. We've given you the pit stop windows. We will also give you the starting drivers as well, as and when they head around there. And remember, just to again just give you the rundown, Group GT3 is for the GT3 homologated cars, of which that is one of them, the number 88 ABBA Racing Mercedes. Group GTO are for the open specification cars. That's just the Radical at the back of the grid, if indeed it's made it after its repairs from earlier on. Group GTC is for later challenge cars, so the likes of the Lamborghini Super Trofeos sit in that group. Group GTB is for earlier challenge cars, so that's the likes of the 911 Cup cars and the Marcos Mantis. Group GTH is for GT4 spec cars, and Group GTA is largely this weekend for what will be the Ginetta Super Cup specification car. So cars forming up on the grid. I think Michelle has probably found her way onto the grid somewhere.
Yes, Mark, I am. I'm here on the grid. Again, we're still waiting for a few of the cars, the front runners as well, to come through. I think that's the number 88, just about to take P1. There we go. Richard Neary in the driving seat for the first part of this pit stop race. I'm actually just waiting for car number 9 to come through because there was quite an interesting, I think you alluded to it just a moment ago actually, Mark, that they finished, this is the Lamborghini, that they finished 27th. It was Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lunn.
Yeah.
Finished 27th. Yet they've still come out as winners. Can you just explain that a bit to us?
Yeah, it's just pulled up behind you now, actually,
Yeah.
Michelle. Yeah, so it's based on the number of starters in the group. So in yesterday's pit stop race, there were 3 starters in Group GTC. Now, Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lunn at the wheel of that number 9 car were leading the championship overall, but they had problems in that race. But their problems allowed them to drop through the order. They finished in 27th, but they did finish, whereas the other 2 cars in Group GTC were non-finishers. So even though we would largely see that Lamborghini inside the top 10 of the race overall, and it was a lowly finish for 27th, because 3 cars had started in the group and they were the only ones to take the checkered flag, they still scored the maximum championship points. And that's very fortunate because, Michelle, that's kept them in the lead of the overall championship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the interesting thing that can happen here at the GT Cup. Well, they've taken their I think they're in P5, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, they're P5, and I've just had a look, and I believe it is Jensen Lunn who is driving first this time round, and then it will be Warren Gilbert who takes over from him once it's come into the pit lane. It's starting to really shape up. We've got a few last cars coming through. That's our second position car just taking its place, the number 61. And then I think it's looking good. We will be ready to start this pit stop race. So it's 50 minutes altogether, and remember that they do have to come into the pit. But Mark, I know that you'll be able to explain a lot more about how that works for us.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, so the grid is ever filling up with this enormous variety of cars. I think I counted up 10 different marques represented on the grid with, for instance, Mercedes and Lamborghini on the front row of the grid. We've got a Nissan on row number 2. Don't forget we've got the Aston Martins and the Porsches that are in there as well, Ginettas, McLarens, and even the Marcos cars as well. So it's real variety as ever in the GT Cup Championship, and that's without things like BMWs that we've seen in it in the past, and even this season BMW. So enormous variety all the way from the very front to the very back of the grid across the 6 different groups that we have got. So yeah, as I mentioned, pit stop window will mean that the cars in the lesser powered classes, so Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA, will stop between the 29th and the 35th minute of the race. Between the 24th and the 29th minute of the race, and those in Group 1, which is for the higher powered cars, Group GTO, Group GT3, Group GTC, will pit between the 29th and the 35th minute of this race. A little bit of final advice being given by Sam Neary to Father Richard, who not only compete in this championship, also compete in the GT Cup. Sam also going over to feel the tyre temperature on the Lamborghini that sits on the outside of the front row of the grid. So just a quick feel of the tyres. They do have ovens out the back of the pit garages, and those ovens are largely powered by sort of propane gas, or it can be diesel or some sort of liquid fuel that they use, and it's a tyre rack that then has a cover over it, and they pop the tyres, the brand new tyres or the used tyres that have been re-prepared again, into those thermally efficient racks with the cover over them. And what that does is it does preheat the tyre and of course the wheel rim to a degree, so when those tyres get bolted on, in the case of some of the teams, they are not stone cold. They do have a reasonable amount of temperature. Of course, You then do the outlap to form up on the grid, and some of that temperature dissipates, so there's still a huge chunk of work to be done as they will head off onto the formation lap that will take place very soon indeed. So 50-minute race coming up. We saw a win in the pit stop race yesterday for the very car that sits there on pole position. The Team ABBA Racing Mercedes have so far this weekend taken a clean sweep as well. 3 races in, 2 sprint races and 1 pit stop race, and they are yet to be beaten in not just GT3, but overall for victory. You can also see the back of the grid. Doesn't look as though the the Radical has made it out, so it is an all Ginetta back row of the grid. We have not got the Raw Motorsport Radical RXC Coupe that should have been started by Ben Dimmock out into the race, I'm afraid. So that is without question one that we have lost as well. So I don't think we've got any Group GTO cars in this one. We started the weekend with at least 4, and sadly all for various reasons have fallen by the wayside, because track time, there's lots of it in GT Cup, with practice sessions both days, qualifying sessions both days, and both the sprint and the pit stop race both days. There's no shortage of track time in the GT Cup, and unfortunately, for some of them, it's just been a little bit too much. Such has been the fantastic close racing that we've had. It's caused damage for some following incidents and mechanical woes for others. So off they go on their formation lap then. Let's guide you through the grid and the way they line up, and give you the starting drivers for this final race of the weekend. Pole position goes the way of Team ABBA Racing. Richard Neary will start, and alongside it is John Dillon. Row 2 of the grid is Lucky Kira and and Graham Tilley. The 3rd row of the grid will see the car of Jensen Lund line up alongside Mike Brown, and it is Chris Kemp, and the starting car will be started by David Frankland on row number 4. Row 5 of the grid is going to be the car of Fraser Smart that will start on row 5, and alongside is Nick Phelps, with the next row of the grid being row 6. The number 34 car will be started by Richard Marsh, and alongside is Mo Ritson. On to row 7 of the grid. And the inside of row 7, we will see the number 67 car, which is Simon Orange. Alongside is Morgan Tilbrook. Row 8 of the grid is Carl Cavers and James Guess, who I said earlier on was feeling a little bit under the weather over the course of the day. On to the next row of the grid, it's Mike Price, who won Group GT8 earlier on in a frantic battle. He sits alongside number 1, which is Josh Jackson, with Mark Hopton, and alongside is the number 3 car, which will be started by Steve Glynn in this race, according to Top Cats Racing. The next row of the grid will see David Holloway line up alongside Seb Melrose. The 12th row of the grid, car number 44, scheduled to be started by Steve Ruston, alongside the number 23 car, which has got Ian Campbell safely on board for part 1 of the race. Chris Murphy will line up on the inside of row 13, and alongside him is James Townsend, with row 14 being Rob Myers, and the number 17 car will be started by Patrick Collins. And then we move on to the final few rows of the grid. Car number 212 will be started by Chris Hart on the inside of row 15, alongside is Alex Stevenson. Andy Roby lines up as the next of the cars towards the tail end of the field in 31st position on the grid. And that's the way that the grid lines up for this one. So looking forward to seeing how all of these cars get on. Andy Roby at the tail end of the field. Sam and Richard Neary hoping for good things in this one. Richard Neary on board at the sharp end of the field, and they are on their final formation lap. Thankfully, the short rain shower that we had, which caused 2 formation laps for some of the supporting races, I don't think will be the case for this one, because it certainly looks dry out there now, and I think there's no question everybody is going to be on the Control Pirelli slick tyre, because if you started on a wet, the tarmac is just too dry at the moment. Warm ambient temperature has dried the tarmac out, and the difficulty will be if we see any cars on the grass, it still might be rather wet on the grass, so we'll just need to be careful and make sure that they try and stay within the confines of the circuit. So we're about to get our final GT Cup Championship race of the weekend underway. It is a Mercedes and a Lamborghini front row of the grid. It's a Lamborghini and a Nissan second row of the grid. Both of those 2 rows of that grid being GT3 spec cars. The first non-GT3 spec car that we have on the grid is going to be the number 9 Lamborghini, that is a Group GTC car that sits there in 5th position. So the cars heading up towards the start-finish line. Round 10 of the 2021 GT Cup Championship. Red lights are on the gantry. The red lights flash out now, and away we go up towards Richie's for the first time. It looks as though Richard Neary has just about got his nose ahead of John Dillon, who slots through into 2nd place. Lucky Kira's 3rd, Graham Tilley 4th. Mike Brown in the Ultimate Speed Aston Martin was looking to try and work his way through. There's a car on the grass on the inside of Richie's. That looked like one of the Veluga Motorsport cars of Carl Cavers. He gathered it up, and it was also a very sideways moment for Patrick Collins at the wheel of his Orange Racing, powered by JMH Ginetta, as he went through Richie's corner. And I think everybody has certainly, albeit with the odd little squabble and skirmish here and there, made it through. And as ever, there will be some great battles in the early stages of this one, as everybody sticks their elbows out and tries to make sure that they hold on to their position and try and perhaps pick a few up along the way as well. There is Steve Glynn. I was told that was going to be starting that car at the back of the grid. And also you can see at the back of the grid Alex Stevenson in the number 6 Ginetta, which was tipped into that spin and had problems in the race earlier on. Now out of Williams, they'll be starting to sprint their way down the Bentley straight before too much longer. John Dillon is in second place, Lucky Kira in third, Graham Tilley in fourth. It's going to be the championship leading car of Jensen Lund that sits there in fifth place. Now there is the number 34 car, that is ex-British touring car driver, also spent a bit of time racing in the British GT Championship, did Richard Marsh at the wheel of the number 34 Porsche, as they all start to propel themselves down the Bentley straight on this first lap of the race. And when they work their way down towards the bottom of the straight, they'll be in towards Brundle and then in towards Nelson. So through Coram will come our race leader. John Dillon tried to stick with Richard Neary. Remember, the pro drivers cannot start this race, so we have three different categorisations. We have the sporting drivers, we have the sporting pros, and then we have the pro drivers. Now, a sporting pro can only start one of the two pit stop races over the weekend. The pro driver cannot start any of the pit stop races over the weekend, so they always go into the car second once the pit stop window opens. And remember, it is a staggered pit stop window as well, so the slower cars will pit first in the slowest of the three groups, and the cars in the fastest of the three groups will be in second into the pit area. That's Morgan Tilbrook, so problems for the Enduro Motorsport Mercedes. Looks as though he might be heading in towards retirement, I'm afraid. He was involved in a great fight in Group GTH earlier on, but it looks as though it's going to be an early retirement for him. Everybody picking their way safely through the Wilson hairpin, all the Group GTH cars with the Group GTA Ginettas amongst them. But for our race leader, Richard Neary, end of the first lap, he was 1.3, almost 1.4 seconds up the road. He's just turning his way through Oggies, whilst the rest of the field are still starting to head onto the braking area at Agostini, and that includes the cars that are fighting at the sharp end of Group GTH. It was the number 26 McLaren that was leading Group GTH, Mo Ritson in the early stages, and a bit like the sprint race that we saw earlier on, it's bottled up behind the number 67 Ginetta of Simon Orange. So that is Simon Orange leading Group GTA in the Ginetta, trying to work his way past David Franklin's Porsche, and I think he might have done it, you know, so I think Ginetta might go through and ahead there of that all-red Porsche. Not sure all is well for the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis. It is struggling to a degree, I think. And down towards the bottom of the Bentley straight, this is Nick Phelps trying to squeeze his way through and past the Ultimate Speed Aston Martin. Got the job done. Mike Brown loses one place. He's now got Fraser Smart in the number 41 Lamborghini queuing up behind him. So Group GT beat Porsche, Group GT3 Aston Martin, Group GTC Lamborghinis behind, of which they are both of those Lamborghinis both run by Stanbridge Motorsport. So Fraser Smart under attack from the number 96 car, which will be started by Chris Kemp, because he will be handing over to a pro driver. Whereas for the car ahead, the 41, either Fraser Smart or James Simons could start, because they're both classed as sporting drivers, and the team therefore declare which one of the two are starting the race. So down the stroke they'll come. Can the more powerful Lambos get through? No. So it's still Porsche from Aston Martin, from Lamborghini, from them Lamborghini. Chris Kemp trying to get an overlap on the sister car there as well. But Nick Phelps doing a really good job. Runs a little bit wide there. Oh, and Chris Kemp came barreling up the inside of Mike Brown. Contact with the Aston Martin, which then spins in sympathy. But I don't think all is well with the number 96 car, following what looked like heavy contact, actually. Just must have missed his braking point, or didn't quite get the braking right there, and clattered into the side of the Aston Martin, which I'm sure is going to, very sadly, probably put both cars out. You can see Chris Kemp is limping his way back into the pit lane. Mike Brown finally gets going at the wheel of the Aston, but I think both of them will be destined for the pit lane. Repairs might be able to be affected, but it's certainly going to have huge impact on where they're going to finish this race, I'm afraid to say. So staying well and truly out of harm's way is Chris Kemp. And that was rather lucky, really, because Fraser Smart at the wheel of the 41 could have got involved in that as well. He just lost the place to his sister car before the problems ensued. Yellow flags down in towards Brundle and Nelson suggests that there's been an issue down there as well. Into the pit lane has come the number 3, Marcos Mantis. I did say it didn't look as though all was going to plan for that Marcos Mantis, so it does look as though that is heading into the pit lane. And I think actually we've gone safety car. Yes, we have. Yep. So safety car boards are out, and that is going to bunch the field up once more. So just as Richard Neary was looking to try and get away, then that is going to bunch the field up. I think, yeah, the safety car is out, potentially because of the position at which Morgan Tilbrook's car has come to race. Now remember, we do have success seconds come the pit stop window, so depending on where the cars finished in the previous pit stop race affects them. Success seconds are based on the results of each class and group in the first pit stop race and subsequent races thereafter, so the success seconds are added to the next pit stop time that the car and driver would otherwise have had. So if you win your group, it's an extra 20 seconds. If you're second in your group, it's an extra 15. And if you're third in your group, it's an extra 10. So we can see Top Cats Racing working away to try and solve the problems with that car. Steve Glynn it is, sitting patiently behind the wheel of it. And yeah, Morgan Tilbrook's car, with the position that it's come to rest, in need of recovery. That is on the outside of Murray's, almost at pit lane exits. I'm sure Morgan tried to get the car towards pit lane entry, but couldn't quite make it. So the car has ground to a halt on the way out of Murray's and didn't quite have enough momentum to head in towards the pit lane. So that's going to bunch them all up again. So leading Group GT3 is our overall race leader, number 88, Richard Neary. The leading car in Group GTC is running down in 5th position. That's the number 9 car that is run by Top Cats Racing, the Lamborghini. That is running as the lead car in Group GTC. The lead car in Group GTB is the white and pink and blue Porsche, number 35, Nick Phelps. He's there in 6th position. Group GTA leading car is number 67, Simon Orange, down in 9th place. Leading Group GTH is going to be Mo Ritson in the number 26 McLaren in 10th position. That gives you the group leaders at this stage, as Morgan Tilbrook's car is now moved out of harm's way. I think it's fair to say it's the only safety car period we've had in the GT Cup so far this weekend. So
yes, there is a quite.
Lights are still on the safety car, and then we can hopefully see the lights extinguished. And yep, lights are out on the safety car, so we're going to be good to go again in a few moments' time, and then we can look forward to getting the race back underway. So weaving from side to side goes Richard Neary, just to try and maintain that little bit of temperature. The safety car has accelerated away. It's up to Richard Neary as to when he wants to get things back underway once more, and then he can start to try and build up that advantage that has dwindled as a result of this safety car period. So out of Murray's, now he decides to go for it. So the Mercedes now gets it foot down and looks to try and pull away from John Dillon. A good restart from Richard Neary as he heads over the start-finish line. And we'll need a good restart as well, because remember, we do have success seconds that need to be brought into consideration. That lead Mercedes is going to have to stop for an extra 20 seconds relative to other cars that sit behind it in the group. John Dillon's car, for instance, which is second in the race, has got an extra 15 seconds that it's got to stop for. And lucky Kira, who sits there in third at the wheel of that number 247 car, has no additional time penalty to worry about come the pit stop. So that is not really what Richard Neary wanted in the early stages. He needed the race to stay clean so he could build up an advantage that he can then perhaps overcome it. Oh, that looked close further back. David Franklin's getting tangled up with the Make It Happen racing car of Chris Hart. You can see that's caused body rub and damage to the front left corner of Chris Hart's car. The Porsche looks for the moment to have got away with it, but the Ginetta certainly not. And with that amount of smoke coming off the front corner, yeah, that's, if it's not a puncture already, it's going to be very, very shortly. And that car, yeah, it's already got a puncture or suspension damage, I think, by the look of things. That tyre is certainly off the rim, but the angle that it's at might potentially mean that it's lost either an upright somewhere, or one of the wishbones has come astray. We'll have to wait and see as to whether it is just a simple repair of the tyre. Now you can see, yeah, it is one of the wishbones that I think, has failed on that car following the contact. Didn't take much, but that has now put Chris Hart out of the race. Stephen Walton will not get the opportunity to drive, I'm afraid. And that's a real shame for that team, because they did claim their first group win in the first race of the weekend. First group win of the season, that is. So Richard Neary looking to try and press on. There goes John Dillon, under pressure from the Lamborghini of Lucky Kira. Both of those Lamborghinis running to GT3 specifications, so they sit in Group GT3, just like the race leader. Graham Tilley's Nissan that's there in fourth also runs in Group GT3. But it's Mercedes from Lamborghini, then the Nissan in the hands of Graham Tilley. And the only driver that will remain behind the wheel of the car for the whole race is Lucky Kira of these cars in the top four. So Richard Neary will give way to Sam Neary. John Dillon will give way in the number 61 Lamborghini to pro driver Phil Quaife. Lucky's on board for the whole race, and Graham Tilley is going to hand over to Will Tregurtha. And as for that number 4 car of Graham Tilley, when he gives way to Will Tregurtha, that car will have to remain stationary for an extra 10 seconds in the pit lane. So Lucky Kira is going to leapfrog all of these cars, but of course the cars that he's going to leapfrog are all going to have pros behind the wheel for part 2 of the race, so he's going to have to keep driving his socks off if he wants to put himself in a strong position for part 2 of the race. And at the moment, yeah, 3rd overall, not a bad performance, but when you've got the pros jumping on board for part 2, they are going to catch him. 38 minutes of the race still to go, so it's a while away yet before the pit window opens. Another 12 minutes before we see the first of the 2 pit windows open. First pit window will be for the Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA cars, and that is when we get to the point where there are 26 minutes of the race remaining. Down towards the bottom of the Bentley straight goes the squabble for 2nd and 3rd place between the 2 Lamborghinis. Looks as though Graham Tilley is just falling away from them a shade more now. So we'll have to wait and see as to whether Graham Tilley can work his way back on towards the coattails of those particular cars. Group GTH battle. Now this is going to be 2nd and 3rd in Group GTH. Yeah, Mike Price, again, it's a bit like the race that we saw earlier on. The number 90 car of Mike Price is 11th overall, but 2nd in Group GTH. Right behind him is the number 1 machine in the hands of the champion from last year, Josh Jackson. And then good to see that the Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin in the hands of James Guess is not far off that, as James has had some sort of stomach upset from overnight and in towards this morning, has been continually trying to keep himself hydrated. It felt rather rotten when I spoke to him this morning, and qualified last, which, yeah, isn't what you would expect James Guest to do, but clearly now he's feeling a little bit better and is now 13th in this race, but more importantly 4th in Group GTH. It's a McLaren 1, 2, 3 in Group GTH, and the first non-McLaren in that car, in that category, which caters for the GT4 cars, is that Aston Martin. So Mike Price, fresh from his first group win of the season earlier on today. The car that prepared the green and white McLaren by Balfe Motorsport, based up in Lincolnshire, run by Sean Balfe and the family. Going beautifully well. The two Lamborghinis still pushing hard as well, as is our race leader, because he was raising the dust in the background there as he worked his way out of Oggies. So down the Bentley straight goes Richard Neary, and good to see, right, the Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis has made it back out by the look of things, so repairs have been effected for Steve Glim, so he may well be a lap or 2 adrift now following those problems. He is only on, what, lap number 5, whereas the race leader is on lap number 7, so he's lost a couple of laps with those issues, but at least they're back in the race. That's the important thing. Now, last time through, Richard Neary set the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far, 1 minute 52.363. He's on for another good lap this time, but he's got the traffic to deal with. And sweeping their way around the outside of Steve Glynn's Marcos Mantis go the 2 Lamborghinis. John Dillon in the number 61 car, still there in 2nd place. Lucky Kira, an ever-present danger. The 2 Greystone GT McLarens going wheel to wheel as well. Mark Hopton just ahead of Ian Campbell. Great to see Greystone GT out with us. 2 cars this weekend. They're back to 3 for Alton Park. I was talking to Tim Mullen, himself a very, very quick driver, earlier on over the course of this weekend, and their master plan is potentially up to 5 before the end of the season from Greystone GT. But yeah, they're having a good little battle, and just off the back of them is another Aston Martin. That's the number 15 car, which is in the hands of David Holloway. So David Holloway is pushing hard to try and get himself right up onto terms with them. David, who was runner-up in Group GTH in this championship back in 2018. Onto the brakes and up towards Murray's goes the number 35 Porsche. That's 6th position. Nick Phelps coming under pressure from Fraser Smart. Porsche runs in Group GTB. Fraser Smart runs in Group GTC. The Lamborghini having a quick look up the inside, heading in towards Palmer, but the door was always going to close. But for Nick Phelps, done lots of track days before, has Nick Phelps, but has never really done any racing. And he's a tall chap. He's well over 6 feet tall, but has really been, I would say, a mega driver over the course of this season. Has not really put a wheel wrong so far, and has always been able to, what, 6'8" tall he is, has been there or thereabouts in Group GTB over the course of the season. So considering his relative lack of experience compared to others, doing a very good job indeed, I would say. John Dillon still in 2nd position. The fight that we're looking at now are the 2 Greystone GT McLarens. Mark Hopton ahead of Ian Campbell. That's for 5th, 6th, and then David Holloway 7th in Group GTH. And in reality, 15th, 16th and 17th overall in the race. Now we've got 33 minutes to go, so we're about 7 minutes away from the pit window opening still, so still plenty of time for these drivers to keep pushing out on circuit. John Dillon has had very little respite, really, since taking up 2nd place earlier on in the race. And Lucky Kier is pushing him to his very limits by the look of things. Very evenly matched on the 2 cars, run by different teams. The number 61 car is run by Scott Sport. The number 247 car is run by Simon Green Motorsport, and that, I'm afraid, is the Group GTB Championship leading car out. That is Richard Marsh, that's clearly got problems with the number 34 car. That is going to put a big dent in their championship aspirations, not just for overall championship, but for the group as well, that they were leading. Now, depending on where Richard Marsh has parked that car, hopefully it's out of harm's way and won't require the need for a safety car. Fraser Smart has finally made it through and past Nick Phelps. So that's the number 41 car now, upper position. Oh no, the Marcos is back in as well, and similar work being done under the bonnet of the car. Arguably the oldest car in the championship, as I mentioned earlier on, dating back to the one-make series that we had for the Marcos Mantis back in the 1990s. So down to the bottom of the Bentley straight comes our race leader, Richard Neary, not really getting away. Another fastest lap for the race leader last time through, 1 minute 51.80, 1 minute 51.817 for Richard Neary. John Dillon was last time through almost a second and a half slower than that, but that's largely because he's being kept very honest by Lucky Kira, and the 2 of them are arguably slowing each other up. Now this is still the fight for 2nd and 3rd in Group GTH, and also the fight for the final place inside the top 10. Mike Price under pressure from the number 1 McLaren in the hands of Josh Jackson. So they thread their way out of Williams, start to propel themselves down the Bentley straight. James Guess, who was with them, has just fallen away a little bit from the pair ahead at the wheel of his Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin. But there's no falling away from Lucky Kira. He's still there, still busy filling the mirrors of John Dillon. And also the 2 Greystone McLarens still line astern, with David Holloway's Aston Martin not too far away as well. So the number 77 car in hands of Mark Hopton, new to motorsport this year, has done quite a lot of track days in performance cars in the past as Mark Hopton. That's what Greystone GT do, and then with this new programme, bring drivers through into motorsport. Very good programme they've put themselves together with. Right behind him is his teammate as well, Ian Campbell, another driver new to racing. Safety cars coming out, I'm afraid, and this is going to be, again, just before the pit window opens, so if we can get, I would imagine, Richard Marsh's car cleared out of harm's way, it should be a fairly short safety car period. I can only imagine that's the car that the race officials have concerns about, because we saw it in the background at Murray's, where it wasn't in the safest of places. So, hopefully, that will allow that car to be dragged out of the way. The Marcos is, again, having had, hopefully, permanent repairs sorted on it, is making its way back out onto the circuit. But all of this really isn't what the race-leading car needs, because remember, we've got those success seconds that we need to consider following the race win yesterday. Then, of course, we know that Team ABBA Racing and their Mercedes are going to have to stop for an additional 20 seconds in the pit lane. John Dillon, who sits there in 2nd place, is going to have to stop for an extra 15 seconds when he hands over to Phil Quaife. And in GT3, the car that was third yesterday, Graham Tilley in the Nissan, is going to have to stop for an extra 10 seconds in this race. And all of that is to try and stop any one single car being dominant. And the 88 has been very dominant so far this weekend. In Group GTO, we've got no success seconds to worry about because we don't have any cars running in Group GTO. In Group GTB, it will be the Team Hard car that would have had maximum success seconds, but we know that is out of the race because that has brought about the safety car period. So we will see the number 911 car of David Franklin, when he gives way to James Hillary, have an extra 15 seconds in the pits, and the number 35 car with Nick Phelps, who drove solo yesterday but is sharing the car today with the Irishman Sean Doyle. That will have an extra 10 seconds to spend in the pit lane. Then when we move on to Group GTC, the only car that we've got to worry about in Group GTC is the number 9 Top Cats Racing Marcos Mantis. That's got an extra 20 seconds to spend in the pit lane, but no other cars in Group GTC have any additional time penalties to worry about. So for Fraser Smart in the 41, who sits just one place behind that number 9 Lamborghini in the race, and bearing in mind the safety car's going to bunch them all up, that puts the number 41 into potentially a good position to maybe get a group win in this race. Possibly, that's all I'll say. It hasn't had a group win so far this season, so if it were to, it would be the first for it this year. And then when we move on to Group GTH, it is going to be the number 26 McLaren that has 20 seconds, the 23 McLaren of Ian Campbell has 15 seconds, and the 90 McLaren of Mike Price, when he hands over to Callum McLeod, will have 10. And Group GTA, I'll just give you, it's an extra 20 seconds for number 67, which is Simon Orange, an extra 15 seconds it would have been for car number 212, but we know that that car in the hands of Chris Hart retired earlier on, and the other car in Group GTA that does have penalties is the number 6 Ginetta, which will be Alex Stevenson when he hands over to James Kellett. So those are your success seconds. They will have an extra 10, by the way, because they were third in yesterday's race. So that's the way success seconds work. And of course, if the race stays green all of the way, you can build up an advantage in part 1 of the race to try and overcome it in part 2. But now with 2 safety car periods before the pit window has opened, then there's no opportunity to do that. And the pit window will open for the likes of the Group GTB, Group GTH and Group GTA cars in around about 90 seconds time. So by the next time they come over the start-finish line, the pit window will be open. And of course, next time they come round, they will still be under the safety car. So we're surely going to see, one would imagine, all of the cars from those groups dive their way into the pit lane. Because if you spend too much time behind the safety car, you're just going to slow yourself up. I do think the safety car will come in next time through, because that Porsche is not far away from being towed towards pit lane entry now. So don't think it will be long before we see the lights extinguished on the safety car. That will happen as it heads out of Brundle and Nelson, so it'll continue around for the rest of this lap with its lights illuminated. And just to confirm, prior to the pit window opening, the running order: number 88 Richard Neary leads the race, 61, which is John Dillon, is in second place, and third place is the number 247 Lamborghini of Lucky Kira. Fourth at the moment is number 4, which is Graham Tilley. Fifth is number 9, that's the Group GTC leader, which is going to be Jensen Lund for part 1 of the race. And sixth is number 41, which is Fraser Smart. 7th is 35, Nick Phelps, that's the Group GTB leading car. 8th is the Group GTA leading car, which is number 67, which is Simon Orange. And 9th is the Group GTH leading car, which is number 26, Mo Ritson, for the first part of the race. That means all of our group winners are inside the top 9 in this race. And completing the top 10 is the number 90 car, which is Mike Price. And I think that puts particularly that number 90 car into a very handy position for part 2 of the race, because the number 90 car in Group GTH yesterday finished in 3rd position, so picks up an extra 10 success seconds. Now, some of the cars already come into the pit lane, because as you can see there are now less than 26 minutes to go. So into the pit lane comes David Franklin, ready to hand over to James Hillary. Also coming into the pit lane looked as though it was Alex Stevenson at the wheel of the Century Motorsport, number 6 Ginetta, to hand over to James Kellett, who's the pro driver. Remember, the pros can only get in for part 2 of the race. David Franklin is sort of extracted out of the number 911 car. In will jump James Kellett. They'll have to get the seatbelts on, make sure the seatbelts are over the hands device as well. Then on will go the steering wheel. They will fire it up into life and then wait for the time period to click through before they start to release that car down the pit lane. And all of this is being done whilst Safety car is still out there currently. We should have maybe just this lap, I think, behind the safety car, and then we should be good to go. The safety car has not as yet picked up the race leader, though, has it? It is the car in 5th position that is behind the safety car. So it is not the race leader at this stage. Now, are they going to release all of the other cars through? No, I don't know. The lights are off on the safety car, so we're going to get the race back underway. The safety car has not picked up the race leader, so it is going to be the car in 5th position which is going to get the race back underway, and that is the car that leads Group GTC at the moment. The car that's second in Group GTC is right behind it. Now, for the number 9 car, this hasn't really worked out at all, because they've got an extra 20 seconds come the pit stop window. The 41 that sits behind has got 0 seconds, so it should put the number 41 car, when Fraser Smart hands over to James Simons, into a very, very strong position indeed in this race. So Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lunn are going to have a tall order here. Jensen Lunn with the last few minutes of driving before that car will head in towards the pit lane. Everybody else, though, is piling in, so in comes Simon Orange. Josh Jackson is in. James Guest comes in to hand over to Aston Martin young driver star, which is Tom Canning, the British GT champion in the GT4 class back in 2019, who is driving that car this weekend, as Darren Turner is away on Nürburgring 24-hour duties, who would usually share that car with James. Remember, all the cars at the front, though, can't pit as yet, so if you're in Group GTO, Group GT3 or Group GTC, you can't pit. There's an off for Andy Roby, who has thankfully avoided contact with the barriers. Should get his car pointing in the right direction and head away once more. But over the start-finish line comes now what is the leader in the race. Richard Neary leading the race. John Dillon in 2nd position. Another couple of minutes before these cars can head in towards the pit lane, because their pit window doesn't open until we get to the 21 minutes to go mark. And then from there, they have to have completed their pit stops before the final 15 minutes of the race. But it's an easy process for most where you've got a pro driver. You let the sporting driver do as little of the time as possible, and then get the pro in for as much as you can. So you always pit at the front end of the window when you've got the quicker driver going in second. In reality, that's the best way for it to work. Richard Neary already starting to build a small advantage between himself and John Dillon. In 2nd place, Lucky Kira. Remember, he's doing the whole race on his own, sitting there in 3rd position at the wheel of the largely black Lamborghini, but with its red and lighter green flashes to it. Graham Tilley's not too far away either. All of the rest of the cars that were pitting will now have concluded those pit stops and be back on their out laps as the driver changes have occurred for the vast majority. Andy Roby has got going again once more. You can see all the gaffer tape to the front end of what was a largely orange Marcos at the beginning of the weekend, but a few problems in the race earlier on have required repairs. And you can see all the yellow gaffer tape to hold the nose of the Marcos together. Great work by the team to get that car out following its damage. So I'm not going to be able to see the race leaders pit this time. Remember, they're just going to be a few seconds away from the pit window opening. You can only pit between the 29th minute and the 35th minute of the race, and we're not quite into the 29th minute yet. So we are, what, 30 seconds away as Richard Neary turns his way out of Murray, so he's going to have to continue for one more lap. And it's the beam at pit lane entry that is what is triggered, so all of these cars in the top 4 can't pit this time, if my understanding of the regulations are right. If they do, there could potentially be a penalty now, and they're all wise to that. They've all continued over the start-finish line. So Richard Neary, John Dillon, Lucky Kira, Graham Tilley, top 4, all onto one further lap in what are ever-darkening skies as well. It's still warm and humid here, but ever-darkening skies, I would suggest. Pit window is now open for the other classes. Oh, contact there. There's a little puff of smoke by the look of things, and I think that was going to be Ian Duggan that almost made contact with Callum McLeod there, and that has pitched the Fox Motorsport Ginetta into the grass, and hopefully will recover. Looks as though he was just firing up and getting going again. That would have been for position as well. They are in different groups, but that would have been for 13th and 14th places. There's the number 10 car, which for today has been taken over. We saw different drivers in that yesterday. It was Freddie Flintoff and Chris Harris, the 2 Top Gear presenters that were having a one-off outing in the GT Cup yesterday. It is Seb Mulrose, Formula Ford star from Scotland, that's taken over that car today. And where is Seb at the moment? He is running car number 10 in 10th position, actually. So 10th place, and he has picked up the lead of Group GTA through the pit stops. He is leading Group GTA currently. I do think he is one of the cars that, has pitted, would have had very little success seconds because he is a new entrant, so he would have picked up a very small amount of success seconds. I think 4 seconds it would have been, something like that, as a new entrant in Group GTA. But that has propelled him into the lead of the group. Now this time I think we'll see the front 4 come in, and I also think we'll see the Group GTC leading number 9 Lamborghini come in. So Richard Neary's going to carry on. No, into the pit lane comes the race leader, so Richard Neary dives for the pit lane, and I suspect he won't be the only one in Group GT3 heading in towards the pit lane. So number 88 Mercedes comes to a halt. In comes John Dillon to hand over to Phil Quaife. In comes Lucky Kira, he will remain behind the wheel. In comes Graham Tilley's Nissan, ready to hand over to former British GT champion in the GT4 class, Will Tregurtha. And this is the second batch of pit stops that are taking place now. Remember, the cars in Group GTO, Group GT3 and Group GTC in day 2 of racing are those that are second to pit in yesterday's race. They were the first of the batches to pit. Now Tom Canning has taken over the Feathers Motorsport Aston Martin. That is being hounded around the circuit by Seb Melrose. As we say, has been a bit of a star up in Scotland in Formula Ford over the course of the years, and is pushing as hard as he possibly can at the wheel of that number 10 car. He's, what, 23 years of age, comes from Bath to Seb, and was the runner-up in the Scottish Formula Ford Championship 2 years consecutively, 2017-2018. James Kellett diving around the outside of Ian Duggan's Fox Motorsport Ginetta. Now, where is that going to put the number 6 car? James Kellett gained 2 positions on his first lap behind the wheel of the number 6 car, and he's gained another 4 on that lap, so he's going well, fair to say. Pit stops now completed. Back out of the pit lane goes Sam Neary, but remember, Lucky Kira is going to be first out of the pits because he had no additional time penalties to worry about. So, as a result of no extra success seconds, Lucky Kira should have picked up the lead of the race now. And for second place, it is going to be, I think, Sam Neary that's there in second place. This is the car of James Hillary, taken over by him from David Franklin. Yeah, there goes Richard Neary, Sam Neary in second position. Will Tregurtha in the Nissan now is going to be up into third position, but Lucky Kira now knows that he's got the pro drivers that are going to be bearing down on him over the course of the remainder of this race, 17 minutes. So he's got to try and push as hard as he can. Now that car, that looks like a slowish pit stop, is it? Or has it only just come in? That is going to be Fraser Smart handing over to James Simons, the ex-F3 Cup racer. But for Jensen Lunt, for Lucky Kira, traffic to deal with. Just threading his way at Oggies past Andy Roby's Marcos Mantis, up towards Williams. Lock brakes from Andy Roby, so hard is he trying. In the slightly second-hand looking at the front now, Marcos Mantis. And then now thread their way all the way down to the bottom of the Bentley Straight. Lucky Kira will be able to just see what's going on in the background. A flash of the lights for Sam Neary, just forewarning James Hillary at the wheel of the Group GTB Porsche that he's on his way. Is he going to be able to get through Brundle and Nelson? No, he's going to have to wait until the exit of the corner and then try and work his way past the Porsche. And Will Tregurtha is going to flash his lights in the Nissan as well and make sure that he dives through. So the fight for second and third is on. Mercedes ahead of Nissan. They were both leapfrogged by the Lamborghini in the pit lane, which I thought would happen with these success seconds that Lucky Kira was not having to carry. 20 seconds additional pit stop it was for the Mercedes. It was an extra 10 seconds additional pit stop for that number 4 Nissan. And they both now have the pro drivers behind the wheel, so they should, no disrespect to Lucky Kira, be able to catch Lucky Kira on pure pace. Now Sam Neary has got Will Tregurtha trying to sweep his way around the outside at Richie's corner. That's a brave move. They are still side by side. Great driving from both. And again, heading in towards the hairpin, Sam Neary has the inside line towards the Wilson hairpin, so should for the moment be able to hang on to it. Gets cleanly off the corner. Mercedes ahead of Nissan for second and third, and this might be absolutely what Lucky Kira needs now. If these two squabble for second and third, they'll slow each other up, and therefore their rate of close to the coattails of the race-leading Lamborghini might just allow Lucky Kira to maybe enjoy a bit more of an advantage than otherwise he has. He's got 5 3/4 seconds lead at the moment, but there's several lapped cars between himself And this number 88 Mercedes, which is now going to have to work its way past Andy Roby's Marcos. Decisive move made. Will Tregurtha just hesitant for a split second, just to make sure that Andy Roby had seen him. There goes Lucky Kira. And here comes the Mercedes and the Nissan, so there's now just one back marker between the pair of them. Don't rule out the fact that Phil Quaife is on board the number 61 Lamborghini now. He's not that far away either. And you can see just how much work is going to have to be done by all of these cars over the course of the next lap or so. Lots of traffic, all having their own individual battles to try and weave their way through. Out of Brundle, out of Nelson, up towards the bomb hole. Will Tregurtha at the wheel of that TechServe UK supported Nissan. Nice and easy to spot the metallic burgundy colour with the two Dayglow stripes right the way down the centre. Lucky Kira trying to slice his way through the traffic as effectively as he possibly can. Now this is the car that leads Group GTB at the moment, the number 35 Porsche leads Group GTB. Right behind it is the Group GTH leading car, and that is Josh Jackson, but he's under pressure from Adam Carroll. Adam Carroll has been a multiple champion. He holds the outright lap record at Brands Hatch from his A1 GP days. He is an A1 GP champion, a pro driver, absolutely, and I think he's going to take up the lead of the group potentially there. Simon Orange in the 67 Ginetta trying to stay out of the way as the Group GT3 front runners try and place a lap on him. Through has gone Sam Neary, through has gone Will Tregurtha. The next car that Will Tregurtha needs to deal with is Top Rawlings at the wheel of his McLaren. They slice their way through that, but you can see flashing of the lights continually just to forewarn the slower cars that you're approaching. The back markers will also receive the blue flags from the ever-efficient Snetterton marshals. You can see over to the right there the wave blue flag, which again just lets the back markers know that quicker cars are approaching. And certainly for Sam Neary, he can't afford to be compromised here. He's got a race to think about. He knows he can't afford to be hesitant through the back markers, but equally, he also can't afford to trip over them. Sam Neary heading up towards Bradley Ellis is the next of those. Down the Bentley straight, yet again they will thread their way. Lucky Kira is getting caught. The lead advantage has been whittled down over the course of the last lap or so. The last lap from Lucky Kira, the race leader, 1 minute 55.5. The lap from Sam Neary, 1 minute 52.6. And from Will Tregurtha, it's the best lap that Nissan had done so far, 153.0. And even Phil Quaife, who's there in fourth place, it was a 152.8 from him. So Lucky Kira is leading the race, but he's the slowest car inside the top four of them at the moment. Now, some of that pace on that previous lap might have come down to traffic, but I think either way, now the pros are on board, Lucky knows that he is probably going to have his work cut out. 12 minutes to go. Over the start-finish line they'll go. Sam Neary sets the fastest lap of the race, almost. In the final third of it, he was quicker than anybody. 36.6 seconds through the final third of the lap. And that was a 52.6 from him that time through. So you can see he's right up onto terms now with Lucky Kira for the lead of the race. Are we going to see a clean sweep of victories for Team ABBA Racing? 12 minutes to go. Sam Neary pushing hard. Lucky Kira is trying to wring the neck of the Simon Green Motorsport prepared Lamborghini Huracan to try and hang on to the lead of the race. He'd be desperate to try and grab a victory if he can. We haven't seen Lucky on the podium in the group too many times so far this year, but an outright win would be exactly the tonic that he needs. But I do fear he's going to have his work cut out here. Round through Hamilton they'll go in towards the braking area for Oggy. Sam Neary dives up the inside of Lucky Kira, who can't close the door. The Mercedes goes through, takes up the lead. The inevitable finally happening, and Lucky Kira now finds himself in second position. He's lost the lead, but what he will want to do now is hang on to the coattails of that race-leading Mercedes and hope that he doesn't get now picked off by Will Tregurtha and Phil Quaife, who are closing in the Nissan and the number 61 Lamborghini, respectively. Through the traffic once more, windscreen wiper comes on Lucky Kira. Might be a bit more rain in the air, potentially, which could add extra spice to the mix. So, for the 19th time of asking, thundering noise of the Mercedes in the hands of Sam Neary turns its way through Coram. Elsewhere down through the order, this is Josh Jackson, the number 1 McLaren, leading Group GTH. Quite comfortably he's leading Group GTH, or is he? No, he's had a problem. He's lost 3 places on that lap, and Adam Carroll has gone through to the lead of Group GTH, has he? Just have a quick look. Yeah, that number 1 McLaren was leading the group, and that was a slow lap from him last time through. So he's now down to third in the group. Adam Carroll has gone through. Tom Canning at the wheel of number 82, Aston Martin, has gone through as well for Feathers Motorsport. Now that's championship points lost, I'm afraid, there for them. They're right at the top end of Group GTA. Now this car here is Tom Rawlings, running way down through the order. Andy Roby's still busy. Bradley Ellis, just almost avoided the contact there with what would have been James Hillary's Porsche. That slowed his exit coming out of the corner, and also taking the opportunity to go through there was European Le Mans Series and World Endurance driver Ollie Webb at the wheel of the 23 McLaren. No matter where you look, it is a busy track, isn't it? Lucky Keir under pressure from Phil Quaife, who's already got past Will Tregeartha at the wheel of the 61 Lamborghini. So that is Phil Quaife, who was fourth at the start of this lap. I think he's going to be up to second by the time they get down towards the bottom of the Bentley Straight, is he? He's being squeezed by Will Tregeartha. None of this will worry our race leader, Sam Neary, who is still amongst the traffic. But who's through into second? No, it's still Will Tregeartha in the Nissan that's hanging on to second place. Phil Quaife hasn't quite been able to unlock the door to it as yet. So Nissan ahead of Lamborghini, then the black Lamborghini with its lighter green flashes in the hands of Lucky Keira. But every single lap is compromised by traffic. You have to just accept the fact that in a multi-class formula, you have to lose a bit of time at some parts of the circuit and then work your way past at others, and that's exactly what Sam Neary is doing now, trying to get a toe off Mike Brown's Ultimate Speed Aston Martin, who is in 7th place and at the moment is the last of the cars that remains on the lead lap. Through he goes, yep, so now off the lead lap goes Mike Brown, but as soon as our race leader gets past one car, there's another one to deal with, and that's James Simon's number 41 Lamborghini, and that leads Group GTC, so that's the 6th place car he's just gone by as well now. I did say I thought the race would come to the number 41 car from Stanbridge Motorsport, that largely blue and silver and lighter green Lamborghini leading its group. The number 9 car, though, isn't that far behind it, I don't think. Yeah, let's just have a quick look. Yeah, there's not a lot to choose between them. So there goes the number 61 Lamborghini. The Nissan is behind it, then the McLaren, and then the next of the Lamborghinis. So those two Lamborghinis in that shot are potentially going to be fighting for the lead of Group GTC before too much longer. And Warren Gilbert gained 3 places on the previous lap. His lap time in the number 9 Lamborghini, 1 minute 56.5. For James Simons, it was a 1 minute 58.6, so substantively slower. Again, some of that, without question, will be down to traffic. So finally, I think, for Sam Neary, there is a clear lap here. So he's been able to pull away from the huge amount of traffic that he's been fighting his way through since he got behind the wheel of that car. Phil Quaife finally managing to get through and ahead of Will Tregeartha. So it's Mercedes from Lamborghini from Nissan, first, second and third at the moment. Phil Quaife, though, having to deal with a car that he wants to put a lap on, but it's not particularly a slow car because it's a GT3 Aston Martin in the hands of Mike Brown. Mike has already gone off the lead lap. Nice to see Ultimate Speed back out again. He's going to wait until the exit of the corner. Of course, then he'll try and get his foot down because he doesn't want to lose time, and Phil Quaife will need to sit behind him, get a bit of a toe and try and pick him off potentially as they head up towards Ritchie's corner. So blue flags waving. Mike Brown will be aware that these are race-leading cars working his way through and past. Doesn't make it easy for them to go through, though. Understandably so. Phil Quaife goes through, exit of the corner. Will Tregeartha goes through. So the battle for second and third potentially back on again. Fourth is Lucky Keira, falling away, having been caught by the pro drivers. Fifth is the Group GTB leading car, the Porsche that's now in the hands of Sean Doyle. Other leaders that we got: in 7th place, the number 77 McLaren of Adam Carroll. In 8th place, number 41 Lamborghini in the hands of James Smart, but getting caught all of the time by the next of the Lamborghinis behind, which is Warren Gilbert, who, having made up 4 places on one lap, has made up 2 on the next, and I think is less than, a 1/10 of a second behind when they started this lap, so we'll try and watch out for that one. The number 41 Lamborghini under pressure from the number 9 Lamborghini. So 5.5 minutes of the race just under to go in this race. Up towards the braking area for Agostini, we can see some of the cars running in Group GTB. Now there is the number 9 Lamborghini. Let's just have a quick look. Has he been able to get through and past already the 41 car of James Simons? No, here comes James Simons, number 41 Lamborghini here, heading down the straight. Lucky Kira's going to sneak through and past, is he, at the wheel of the 4th place car? No, not quite. So here's the meat in the sandwich here. Group GTC Lamborghini, the number 41 car, about to be lapped by Lucky Kira. Once the black Lambo goes through, the next two behind are fighting for the lead of the group. So James Simons under huge pressure from Warren Gilbert, and remember Warren Gilbert wants to pick up the lead of the group, and that number 9 Lamborghini also leads the overall championship standings. They were lucky yesterday when they had problems and finished in 27th place, but because of problems for the likes of the number 91 Lamborghini and the number 96, which was long out of this race, they still claim maximum points. So are they going to be able to add another group win to the tally, or might we see the number 41 Lamborghini for the first time this year claim a group win in Group GTC? Well, they're absolutely together now, 4 minutes of the race to go. It's going to be intriguing last 3 or 4 laps potentially. We did have a new fastest lap of the race last time through. Sam Neary popped in a 1 minute 50.875 at the wheel of the race leading number 88 Mercedes, so he's not slowed his pace at all, leading by almost, as you can see on your screens there, 7.5 seconds from Phil Quaife, with Will Tregurtha, Lucky Kira, Sean Doyle, Mike Brown, Adam Carroll, James Simons, Warren Gilbert and Tom Canning completing the top 10. So onto the Bentley Straight will come our race leader once more, having been so busy in traffic for so many laps. Look, there's nobody around him now, in stark contrast to what was going on a few laps ago. Sam Neary continuing to lead for the lead of Group GTC. They are still together. James Simons is not giving up his aspirations, but Warren Gilbert might try and unlock the door here, heading up towards Williams. No, can't quite go through. Key corner this as well, got to get cleanly off Williams, and it looks so Warren Gilbert has got a really good run coming out of Williams, and now he's going to challenge to try and take the place away. This is going to be for 8th and 9th places overall. James Simons on the right of your screen. Warren Gilbert's going to have to brave it around the outside of Brundle to get the inside for Nelson, and he's going to make it stick. He picks up the place and takes the lead of Group GTC. Fantastic stuff for the car that leads the group, and potentially is going to leave Snetterton leading the overall championship as well. Remember, that's a brand new car to Warren Gilbert and the owner of the car, Jensen Lund, for this season. Top Cats Racing have run Lamborghinis in the past, but that was a Gallardo, an entirely different car to the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo that they run now. So having lost the lead of the group, James Simons, there's not a great deal he can do about it now. Just under a couple of minutes to go. Lucky Kira still sitting there in 4th position. GT3 cars lead the top 4 places at the moment. GTB car in 5th, GTH car in 7th, GTC car in 8th. Those are your group leaders, and the leading car in Group GTA, just to give you, it is down in 14th at the moment. It's still the number 10 Ginetta in the hands of Scottish Formula Ford racer Seb Melrose. So Lucky Kira still with a little bit of traffic to deal with. This will be the 4th place car about to place a lap on the 6th place car. Will Tregurtha in the Nissan picking his way out of Oggies. And in the Group GTH squabble, this is going to be 3rd, 4th and 5th in Group GTH. So this is Josh Jackson fighting away with the pro drivers that are now catching him as well. The number 90 having been taken over by former British GT and Blancpain racer Callum McLeod, and the number 15 Aston Martin taken over by former British GT GT3 champion back in 2007 Bradley Ellis. So really good fights going on all the way as ever through the order, and even right the way down to what we're looking at now, the number 26 McLaren in the hands of Mo Ritson, 8th in the group, fighting away with Ollie Webb at the wheel of the number 23 car. That's for 21st and 22nd position overall. Down towards the bottom of the Bentley Straight, McLaren, then Aston Martin, followed by James Kellett's Ginetta. Now, has he gone through and taken the place away from Melrose? Yes, he has. That was for a change of the lead of Group GTA. James Kellett picks up the position from Seb Melrose, who's all over the grass on the way out of Brundle. But the number 10, Ginetta, has now lost the lead of the class, and it's the Century Motorsport black and red car of James Kellett, having taken over from Alex Stevenson, that's now picked up the lead of Group GTA. Now, that would be a great result for Alex Stevenson and James Kellett. They'd had sort of 2nd and 3rd in groups coming into this weekend in Group GTA. We saw them on the Group GTA podium as well over the course of this weekend, but they have not as yet had a win in Group GTA in the 3 races, because we saw the Make It Happen Ginetta racing car win the first race of the weekend in Group GTA, and the number 67 Orange racing powered by JMH car claimed wins in yesterday's pit stop race and the sprint race earlier on in the group, so it would be a first group win for the season for them. The clock has ticked to 0 for the final time. Sam Neary picks his way out of Brundle, out of Nelson, up towards the area of the Bombholz, sweeping his way through the right-hander and then up to the never-ending right-hander. There is Dad, Richard Neary, waiting on the pit wall. It is going to be a clean sweep this weekend in the GT Cup Championship for Team ABBA Racing and the number 88 Mercedes of Richard Neary, who started the car, and his son Sam Neary, the 19-year-old, who brings it towards the checkered flag. 4 out of 4 in the GT Cup Championship, and as I said earlier on, for a team that weren't necessarily going to do the full championship. They've done so well in the early part of the year, they've decided to become a full season entry, and well, they're proving to be a force to be reckoned with. Phil Quaife, taking over from John Dillon, finishes in 2nd place, and it will be Will Tregerth, who brought the Nissan towards the line, having taken over from Graham Tilley, that will finish in 3rd position. Over the start-finish line comes the number 35 car. That's Sean Doyle, who has picked up for himself and Nick Phelps top honours in Group GTB, and we've still got this fight going on for 3rd, 4th and 5th in Group GTH. Josh Jackson under pressure from Callum McLeod and Bradley Ellis, the 2 pros ganging up on, well, the amateur driver. To say he's an amateur is almost being disparaging to him, because Josh Jackson is a very, very good driver in his own right, and he has fended off the pros that have been queuing up behind him, Callum McLeod and the number 15 Aston Martin, in the hands of Bradley Ellis, and will take 3rd in the group at the wheel of that number 1 car. So it's more championship points for them to scoop up when we tally things up towards the end of the season. Plenty more cars still to trickle their way over the start-finish line. Through has just come the number 6 Ginetta to claim Group GTA honours, so well done to James Kellett, having taken over from Alex Stevenson. That is their first group win, as far as I can tell, of the season so far, so they will be hugely, hugely delighted with that. And also, I think we've seen a first group win also for the number 77 McLaren of Mark Hopton and Adam Carroll. We saw a win, or a first podium, group podium for the sister car to it yesterday. But for the number 77 car, that is their first Group GTH win of the GT Cup season. So well done to them for a solid performance. So that is it for GT Cup. We've still got, of course, some results to bring you, which we'll bring you very shortly indeed. We'll also be hearing from Michelle about what's going on for the remainder of the 2021 championship season in GT Cup. But what a perfect weekend for that car there. Flashing its lights, Sam Neary, as he works his way back in towards the pit lane area. 4 out of 4. And not quite as dominant as the other wins, but that was largely only because of those 2 safety car periods that we had. He still won himself, and Dad, of course, Richard Neary, by 8.5 seconds when the checkered flag came out. And, well, you wouldn't bet against them potentially being right at the sharp end of this championship until the very end. I think mathematically they won't have taken the lead of the championship, but it's going to be very close indeed, because, of course, we did see the number 9 Lamborghini of Jensen Lum and Warren Gilbert, who brought it towards the checkered flag, finally taking up the first place in Group GTC, so they will have also scored maximum points. So the number 88 Mercedes and the number 9 McLaren will be leading their respective groups, Group GT3 and Group GTC, but for the overall championship, there's literally going to be points between the pair of them when we head towards the next rounds. So we will wait and see as to what might happen, because it's a long season and consistency is the key. I think Paul Bailey alluded to that in his interview with us over the course of the weekend. You have to remain consistent. Totals from all point-scoring rounds in the 2021 GT Cup Championship season will determine the final championship points, is the way that the regulations are written. So you can't afford a bad weekend. You can afford maybe a bad race if then you're hugely consistent for the rest of the season, but you have 2 or 3 or 4 bad races, whether it be bad luck, wrong place, wrong time, mechanical issues, but you just have to remain consistent and try and pick up the points and have a little bit of good luck along the way. So that is what so far that car has had. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to head down towards Michelle and the pit lane and maybe try and get some reaction post-race.
Hello there, Mark. Yes, I'm down here at the garage where we've got the number 88. You're going to have to follow me in here because they're running away from me. Let's have a quick chat. Guys, I've got to come in and jump in. I know you've just got out of the car. Can I ask you to come out here so we can see you? He's just got to get his helmet off. There we go. We've got Richard with us. Sam will join us in just a second. He just needs to put a door back on. These are the sorts of things that happen. What a result. 4 out of 4 for them this weekend. It's so good. No, it's all good. Fantastic. Well done. You've had 4 out of 4 this weekend. I mean, what a result.
Absolutely. We've tried a few times. We've had 3 out of 4 a few times, but we've never managed to get all 4. So, yeah, we've been very lucky today.
How was it, Sam? Well done.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Unfortunately, the safety cars came out at the wrong time and sort of got rid of Richard's lead that he brought out. But, you know, we've had a great battle with Will in turn 1, which was great fun. And then passed Lucky. And, you know, it was all clean and fair. And I loved every minute of it, really. It was great.
Congratulations. It was a real top result for you. I can see you're both very happy. Go and have your celebratory water.
Thank you.
Well, Mark, I'm going to hand back to you just before we do our goodbyes because I know you've got a run through of all the results for us.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, always good to chat to the winners, and what a weekend it has been for Team ABBA and Richard and Sam Neary. So let's just confirm the results for round 10 of the GT Cup Championship. It was a win for Team ABBA Racing and the Mercedes. Second was John Dillon and Phil Quaife with their Lamborghini. And third was Graham Tilley and Will Tregurtha. Lucky Kira completed the top 4. And the first of the non-Group GT3 cars was the Group GTB winner of Nick Phelps and Sean Doyle, who finished in 5th position, with Mike Brown finishing in 6th. And the Group GTC leading car, which I think mathematically, subject to official confirmation, will still be the overall championship leader, finished in 7th place of Warren Gilbert and Jensen Lum. 8th place and a first group win of the season for Mark Hopton and the pro driver Adam Carroll. 9th place for James Simon and Fraser Smart, and completing the top 10 was James Guess, who was partnered this weekend with Tom Canning. In Group GTH, we saw the number 1 car of what will be Josh Jackson finishing 11th place. 12th place went the way of Mike Price and Callum McLeod, and 13th was David Holloway and Bradley Ellis. 14th, and the Group GTA win for, I think, the first time this season, went the way of Alex Stevenson and James Kellett. It was Carl Cavers and Lewis Plato in 15th, head of Self Melrose. Then Rob Myers and Charlie Hollings, followed by Simon Orange in 18th place. 19th was David Franklin and James Hillary, and completing the top 20 was Andy Roby. Just outside of the top 20 was Ian Campbell and Ollie Webb, followed by Mo Ritson and Tom Rawlings. And then it was the Team Orange powered by JMH number 17 Ginetta that finished in 23rd position, ahead of the Fox Motorsport pairing of Ian Duggan and James Townsend. Chris Murphy was 25th, ahead of Charlotte Gilbert and Steve Glynn. I think from 27th onward, with Team Hard and Make It Happen and Stanbridge Motorsport and Signature RV stroke Paddock Motorsport, all the rest of those, including the Enduro Motorsport pairing of Morgan Tilbrook and Marcus Clutton, were sadly all retirements over the course of that final race of the weekend for the GT Cup Championship. So whilst that's the final race of the weekend here at Snetterton, there's still plenty more to come up in the 2021 season, and I think Michelle can give us our final goodbyes and tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, almost got run over by the number 88 there that came off its blocks, but I'm still here. I'm ready to go. That is it. What a superb weekend of racing here in Norfolk. Thank you so much for joining us. GT Cup will be back again, but for one day only. It is the 3rd of July. This time round, we will be rolling into Alton Park. So hopefully you can join us for that one with more live coverage of GT Cup racing. In the meantime, don't forget, do check out all our social media channels, GT Cup. You can find us on there. Check out all the highlights from the weekend and all the past races as well, don't forget. But we'll see you in about a month's time in Alton Park. Take care. Goodbye.